The USS Liberty incident is back in the news and back in public discourse after, mostly after a question that Ben Shapiro was asked after his fantastic talk at the Turning Point USA conference. Um, it's actually Daniel. I said before the show, maybe we'll start with the video of the guy. Maybe we'll start with that actually, the question. So Ben Shapiro was asked a question. We're gonna see it. Then we're gonna go through a little bit of a debate that Phil Turney did. Phil Turney is the guy who is the reason why you even know about the USS Liberty. This is somebody who has had a very successful career. His entire life, his entire career has been pushing the line that Israel, in the middle of a major war, decided that what they're going to spend their resources on is bombing a U.S. ship in order to start World War III. And the U.S. president was somehow on board with it, even though it didn't result in World War III. There's a lot of questions that if you just ask questions, the whole thing falls apart. But some people don't, and that's why this is a thing. Phil Turney, I think, got to his most popular moment in his life a year ago when he was on the Candace Owens show, and of course, she just asked the questions, but she didn't ask any of the actual questions that need to be asked. So it was a softball interview. When we go through this debate, you'll see what happens when Phil Turney is confronted by somebody who actually challenges him. Uh, Welcome to the reality show. I'm Razi Ginsburg. I'm joined by Daniel Kraus, and for a topic like this, we needed to bring out the big guns. And I'm not just referring to his muscles. David Raboy is joining us today for this. Should we just start with this clip of the question that Ben Shapiro was asked and see how he answered?
Thank you for being here, Ben. You cited during your speech truth as the most important tenet of American conservatism. Why, therefore, did you call irrelevant the Israeli attack in 1967 on the USS Liberty, which left dozens of American servicemen dead and hundreds wounded?
So what I actually said is that if we're looking at modern Israeli-American relations, looking at an attack that happened mistakenly by multiple Navy reports, multiple Israeli reports, and all available
Do you want to listen to the Ben part?
Sure, yeah, let's listen to his
evidence, and using that attack in order to undermine today's relations between Israel and America, that's irrelevant. As irrelevant as it would be to cite a piece of evidence from World War II or from 1776 to define America's relations with, for example, Great Britain or Germany today. That does not mean that the attack wasn't horrible for the Americans involved, that it wasn't bloody and terrible. The Israeli government paid reparations to the people who were killed. If you look at the actual military record of what happened on the USS Liberty, it was clearly a mistaken and tragic attack. The people who frequently cite the USS Liberty, however, are not talking about the specifics of the USS Liberty. I suspect that the vast majority of people who bring this up are doing so in order to suggest that Israel deliberately attacked an American ship because Israel deliberately wants to harm America. It is connected generally with a larger point. I wonder if that's your point.
Okay, let's pause here and then let's hear the follow-up. David, Ben Shapiro, that answer is great. I don't know why he has to talk at 1.5 speed because, what he says is important and needs to be heard fully and digested. But yeah, your thoughts on that part and generally on this issue coming up again and again.
Well, I know Ben, and I know that he also reads and writes at 1.5 speed or better. So it's a thing that spans his whole thing. But yeah, look, I mean, just before we really get into the specifics, just as a meta issue, what these guys are doing is sort of very clever in today's online media environment, which is they open up a front, they open up multiple fronts, and they go and they can say anything they want about it. The proliferation of absurd fake Talmud quotes is another great example. But you can literally come up with with anything, and without any factual basis. And everyone will go and will chase after, and we'll have. I mean, I had this conversation with friends over the weekend, and we're saying, like, is it worth responding to this stuff? Is it worth fact checking? Because the people for whom it's like catnip, it doesn't get through to them. On one hand, on the other hand, is you're then forever relegated to chasing after these people and correcting them, saying, no, okay, here's this, and this. And as it's always far harder to to show up with facts and to construct a narrative based on things that we know or things that are knowable, than it is just to vomit out insane accusations. And I mean, we'll see it in the clip where where Phil Turney is just making absurd conjectures based on nothing that he could possibly know, A, and B, nothing that would make rational sense in in a rational universe. And and how do you combat that? I mean, we go online, we go on Twitter this moment, and we see people screaming about this. And when I posted that video, people are screaming at me saying, how dare someone challenge a guy who was a witness, who was there? And and I scratch my head and say, man, when James Lindsay calls these people woke right, it's absolutely true, because it's like, how dare you question my truth? This is my truth. And this is the same thing we're seeing. It's just the same thing we're seeing. It's very sad. It's sick. And and I'm alternately, kind of gray pilled and black pilled about what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get to this when we hear Phil Turney really fall apart as soon as he's challenged. But yeah, this whole one of the things I think the thing he repeats the most in this hour and a half long debate is I was there, I was there. But his argument is about Israel doing this deliberately. We know Israel did this. The deliberately part, where is it? Where is there that you were, that their motivation? Were you inside the insidious minds of the Jews, plotting World War III? Were you inside the mind of President Johnson, who he says was a part of it? There's no I don't want to use that there's no there, but yeah, where is there is a question that it would be good to ask him. But I have to say, Cam Higby did a fantastic job in that debate, and so we'll get to that soon. Daniel, um, yeah, your thoughts on what we just saw.
Yeah, I mean, well, specifically why they bring this thing out, and I always call it propaganda, because what is propaganda? Propaganda is taking something that is either partially true or something that is even maybe fully true, and like making the whole issue out of that. And my favorite example is the Ukrainians are Nazis. You take one group, one part of one group of what used to be and now is integrated into Ukrainian military, and you say, now this is the whole of military, and you're basically just doing Russia propaganda, right? And the part is that part of it might be true, right? That there is like an aspect of truth that is there, but they're using it to overblow the whole issue. So it is, and then when we go to USS Liberty or any conspiracy for that matter, and as Dave said, when it comes to like debunking it and if it's worth it, because right now I have like several like conspiracy claims that I haven't looked into yet, and I'm wondering like, is it even worth and worth to look into? And I'm thinking like specifically with the Holocaust, I have there were the wooden doors, and they couldn't close it, so how could the gas like work? And I haven't looked into, because do I want to like really bother with that? Or with the JFK, right? There were 4 bullet holes, but only 2 rifle shots or something like that. And it's like, do I really want to like look into every single piece of this weird like conspiracy? Because again, they are not looking for truth, as Ben alluded to. It's not about specifically USS Liberty incident. It's about using something to basically talk about the relationship today, which again, we can talk about the Israeli alliance right now. Like, if you don't think America's interest is with Israel, we can have that conversation. But making it about USS Liberty, again, is weird. And because again, you might have like with Israel, I think it's hard because I think the sort of reason for American self-interest with Israel is really straightforward. But you could make that case about, I don't know, Egypt, that America is still, is in top five of foreign support that America is giving to Egypt. We can discuss that, but it's always Israel.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's really making the case. They're using such conspiracy theories, and there's a reason why of all this the crap that Candace throws out there on her show, this one caught on. First of all, again, it was an attack that happened, and then they're adding motivation and a bunch of stuff. It's the Jews, and it's the kind of thing that, people who hate Jews, this is the kind of thing that they say, you would expect from Jews. There's so much, of course, that they leave out, like the stuff we said, like what Ben pointed out, the fact that it's a war. The USS Liberty was in the middle of a major war zone. The fact that, friendly fire incidents happen in every single, well, I don't know if maybe not, Grenada or Panama, which I think was won by blasting music into the president's palace or something, right? And then he surrendered. But almost every war has friendly fire incidents. But yeah, all that is ignored. This is the biggest friendly fire incident story in the world. I'm in Britain right now. We don't hear many complaints from the French about the bombing of French ships after France surrendered to Nazi Germany, which wasn't an accident, it was on purpose, and it was the right thing to do, and I think the French acknowledged that. But yeah, this is the Jews, so it's a different story. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Glasgow, Glasgow has declared Jesus was a Palestinian. Look, I used to look to reality to find out what's right and wrong. But now, since I look to Glasgow City Council and how they vote, I have to agree. Yeah, Jesus was officially a Palestinian. All right, should we go to a bit more of this clip?
Yes, we can.
If the truth matters, then the Israeli government must be held accountable for that attack. The American flag was flying on that ship. You do not mistake an American ship for a foreign one when our flag is flying.
So, we can spend the rest of the time talking about the specifics of the U.S. Liberty attack, or you can actually go look at the naval investigations that were done, multiple naval investigations that were done. The reality is that people were flying Mirage planes for the Israeli military at the time. The USS Liberty was sailing in an area where it had essentially gone off-grid. The Israeli military mistook it for an Egyptian ship. They thought it was shelling Al Arish, which happened not to be true. In the initial attack, the American flag was knocked down, and then the attack went on for about 90 minutes. And then, as soon, you can hear this, by the way, on the tapes of the Israeli pilots talking to each other, as soon as they realize that it's an American ship, they call off the attack, they speed a ship to try and help the USS Liberty. There have been multiple unfortunate friendly fire incidents between Allied forces, including, for example, in the Gulf War, where U.S. forces were responsible for killing about 9 British troops during the Gulf War. It's an unfortunate reality of war, but you're not answering my question, which is, what is your broader agenda in asking the question? Because I suspect that your question is not limited to your specific ire over an incident that happened in 1967.
I think we should question any foreign country's relationship with our government.
That's totally fine, but I'm just wondering why you
serve American interests.
Again, I'm perfectly fine with questioning any country's relationship with the United States. But again, I'm wondering what your motivation is in bringing up a 6-decade-old attack as though it is the #1 issue in assessing the relationship between Israel and the United States today.
Well, many problems persist to this day, but it's interesting that you say 6-decade-old incident when there are many people in this audience who were alive for that attack, as if this is something that's irrelevant.
Well, no, it's just not particularly relevant to assessing the relationship between the United States and Israel today, in the same way that in 1967, there are a wide variety of countries with which the United States had different relations. Okay, it's clear you're not going to actually answer the question, so I'm happy to move.
Yeah, I'm really trying to stick to substance, but seeing this smug kid, who I'm sure is a huge Andrew Tate fan, stand there really being, making some half-ass argument or regurgitating what he heard on Candace Owens' show and being torn to shreds and he's actually proud of himself for a complete lack of substance. And this, seeing that kind of, that kind of reaction to what just happened from the person who clearly lost that interaction, makes me worried about where this movement is going. He delivered, he had good delivery for really bad arguments, David.
Do you think so? I thought, honestly, I thought he came off like a shooter. I thought he came off like someone that you've got to watch because you know God forbid there's going to be some violent outburst. I think the tone of his voice, his speech pattern, everything about it was suppressed um, rage. And I don't think he exactly knows why. I just, I think he's trying really hard to. I mean, look, one of the things that I mean, this is what I always say that we have going for us, and the other side doesn't. One of the things that we have going for us is that if you wake any of us up, I mean, whatever, speaking for myself, but I think you guys as well, you wake us up in the middle of the night and you ask us how we feel about certain things and how we feel about the world, basically, and we'll tell you. And it won't be any different than what we say during the day. I think when we're dealing with this crowd, this woke right, these group this particular, let's say, large and growing subset of the American right, it's all fake. They can't say what they really are after. And that's why you start to see, I think that's why they're at a disadvantage at the end of the day, because it's always in fits and starts. And I guess the smarter ones have an idea of when they can when they can shift from being on the down low to being honest about what they say. And I mean, we even say we know that they do this. We know that the Muslim Brotherhood does this. We know that they do this as a strategy. And other subversive groups, subversive minority groups, minority, not being racial, but being like, small, within a population, this is how the vanguard operates. It's they can't be honest about what they believe, and but they figure like at some point, the milestones will be such, to borrow a term from Katoub, the milestones, we'll get to the milestone where we can be honest about what we believe. And like someone like Daryl Cooper, I think Mother Jones went and found his old, his old screen name that he used on some neo-Nazi forums, where he specifically talked about this and doing this. So I do think that the people who are honest and open about what they believe, people like Ben, are at an amazing advantage over some other folks, because at least you won't trip them up like this. And I mean, I would hope that the American people see through this kind of hedging. And I mean, it will remain to be seen.
Yeah. And again, what Ben Shapiro did in his opening talk helps, because again, these people are going full speed ahead, and calling them out is something, as we saw, days of the conference where basically there was one topic in the conference. How do we respond to Ben Shapiro? And the result was not impressive. It was not answering any of the points that he was making. It was either saying things like "I laughed," and saying things like "fuck you," and saying things like or answering points. This is the Megyn Kelly way, which is answering points which were never made. Um, Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, anything they can blame on Jews, they will. Yes, and yeah, and they do. Thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says, didn't listen to you quite some time, but nice to be back. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to all of you, ARCUK. Our common fight for reason is so important. Absolutely. Check out the shows that we've done over the past couple of days on America Fest. I think they were very good. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, again, going into because David earlier mentioned the woke right? And this is again the way the left has been thinking when they bring up what about the slavery or what about Jim Crow, and like, okay, but America did bad things, but can we now move on as a nation and try to look into the future, try to see what we can do right now instead of constantly being obsessed with what has happened in the past and viewing and our understanding of people, groups or individual as framed in just that aspect, because this is what he's doing, right? He's saying all the relationship with Israel should be framed only through the USS Liberty incident, nothing else. That's the only way to think about. And even the way he's bringing things up, right? He said, where was it? Something like, oh, what did I have? Oh, Israel must be held accountable. Okay, what does it mean? Because Israel apologized for the act, Israel paid the families of the people who died. That seems like accountability to me. Like America didn't even know it was Israel before Israel already started apologizing for doing so, because Israel was the one who earlier knew what a mistake they've made. So the question is, like, what is this accountability? If you think, what should that be, more money? And of course, money won't bring the families of the loved ones back. So there is nothing in reality for those specific families. There is nothing Israel could do, right? We are only talking about like what, now that it has happened, how we can move on. And I'm not even saying that Israel should have the same relationship with America. I mean, I believe in that. But if you have a different idea, okay, go with that. But why use specific and somebody in the chat, I think, even pointed it out better, that propaganda is sort of like listing only one side. And I think that is also a good way to talk about it, because we oftentimes talk about the climate propaganda, right? It's the people who only focus on like, this is the bad stuff that will happen, we need to change. But what about, they say we need to get rid of, let's say, coal because CO2 emissions. But what about the other side of the fact that humans need energy, and we need to have energy, we need the reliable energy. So people who are propagandists and are people who only focus on one side instead of like trying to take the whole thing into account, recognize the problems with both sides, and trying to put them together. Because again, like, these people, if the USS Liberty incident didn't happen, they would pick some other thing. They because this is, I think, probably one of the strongest thing they have. If it wasn't this, they would say, oh, Netanyahu brought America into Iraq war. Or I mean, I don't know what even the other sort of like things are. Or even Israel brought in America to attack Iran, right? Like, there would always be something that they would like to bring up.
Right. Well, the
And
meta point. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So the meta point here is not that there was a friendly fire incident, because they can't say that it's a friendly fire incident. They have to say that it was done deliberately, and why? Because Jews are bad, and because Jews like to kill, and because Jews like to kill white Christian Americans, and because that's just what we do. And that's the bottom line that they're always trying to push. That's what they do when it comes to when it comes to too much of their propaganda too. So that's the message that they're going for. I mean, look, it used to be when, I mean, okay, I'm an old timer. I probably have many years on you guys. I remember the USS Liberty, first hearing about the conspiracy theories and looking into it 20 years ago, something like that. And and back then it was that Israel did it because something, right? Israel did it. And that persisted for a while. But then in the last several years, it kind of changed to say that no, as a matter of fact, it was planned by LBJ together with the Israelis. So like the main focus of the thing shifted to the US government and also Israel. So like Israel became like, I mean, it's very interesting how if you listen to their narratives, just how it goes, because on one hand, this is all about the US Israel relationship. But then on the other hand, you have Phil Turney screaming about how it's all LBJ trying to get us into World War III. So does that mean that LBJ was controlling Israel to do this. Look, none of this makes sense, obviously. But I think it's interesting that this narrative changed around the time that, and Cam Higby does a great job of kind of bringing this up. Does a great job. The narrative changed around the time that the that people started to notice, like let's say USS Liberty skeptics started to notice that the transcripts from the Israeli pilots um, totally contradicted everything that they're saying. And those weren't the transcripts that the Israelis released. Those were the transcripts that the NSA intercepted from the Israeli pilots. So then they were like, okay, well, I guess we need to bring the US into it in a more serious way because none of this actually makes sense. And then I don't know if you guys are going to play the clip, but elsewhere in this particular thing, Cam Higby points out that his organization pulled some of the transcripts that made his case look bad and made the Liberty conspiracy theories look bad from their own website, and pulled some documentaries that like the most famous documentaries about this particular incident. They just pulled them from the website because I think they're realizing that there are a lot of holes here, number one, and in this story, and number two, I think they're realizing that their particular audience does not care about details. So for them, a podcast with Candace or Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was another one who did a long, fawning interview of Phil Turney about the USS Liberty and concluded basically like, the same thing that Turney concluded that, it was no, actually he concluded that it was just all Israel. Um, and so I think these guys realize that like we don't even need to put out data or documentation or anything like that. We could just repeat and repeat over and over the same nonsense. And I think that's a realization that you know, it may have some validity considering the online information ecosystem today.
Yeah, and the point about people believing it because they want to believe it. I mean, look, if these people ask questions not of Phil Turney, of themselves in their own head, and they're like, okay, if the president of the United States of America wants World War III to happen, World War III happens. That's not a long stretch. So many holes again. Okay, let's listen to some of this debate. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Daniel, let's play the clip. This is an hour and a half long debate. We're not going to play anywhere near the whole thing. You should go watch the whole thing. It really, shows Phil Turney for who he is. But let's see what we can watch.
Yeah, just quickly, because somebody was asking if America is specifically or like unique in the amount of like conspiracism that is among Americans. Well, I'd just like to point out my country, Slovakia, 1/3 of people don't believe the Earth is round, so you're not the only one.
Oh, that's maybe they
Yeah,
watch
but
enough Candace.
that's harmless compared to some of the conspiracy theories rolling around here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it usually comes together. There's very few people who
Right.
like believe in one conspiracy.
Right, right. Well,
yeah.
that's the rule that I have and that many of my friends have, which is you can get one. You get one. You get a free one where it's like charming and a little bit eccentric. And it's like, hey, I believe we never landed on the moon, but like everything else is fine. I'm like, okay, you know what? We can debate that. You're a little kooky, but you're still sane.
You're more
But
generous than I am. No, with me you don't get one. By the way, there are societies that are worse on this, but America unfortunately looks like it's catching up. But yeah, if you go to any Muslim country,
well, the
they-
Arab world,
they're
yeah.
they're looking behind the trees and the rocks to see if a Jew is hiding. Actually, they don't need to look because the trees and the rocks will tell them when the Jews are hiding behind them. Uh,
Well, I
Okay.
have to just bring up one more things quickly because I remember from about the flat earth from Joe Rogan podcast. He was with, I think, with Matt Walsh or somebody like that. They were talking about like flat earth and making fun of flat earthers. And it's like, and Joe was saying, oh, you know, like imagine the amount of people, the amount of agencies you would need to hide the fact that like the earth is round. And Matt was like, yeah, it's like the people who believe the moon landing is fake. And Joe Rogan is like, well, wait a second. It's like, well, that is fake. And Matt Walsh was like, wait, isn't that the same thing? Like the amount of organization? And he's like, and he was just wasn't able to apply like the same principle to the other conspiracy, which was funny. Which is why I think they usually come together because it's epistemological
Yeah,
issue
yeah.
fundamentally, not like facts issue. But yeah, let's you wanna check out from the actual debate, right?
Yeah.
Listen, it was jet aircraft after 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 jet aircraft. That's what it was all about. So don't tell me
So you're
that
saying
I'm
there's more
mistaken.
than two?
But you
Hell
yourself had
yeah.
said there was
Jet
you said there was
aircraft.
only two. Multiple in every interview you've ever done, you said that there was a Mirage and a Mystere. In every
Oh,
interview
yeah,
you've ever
there
done,
were
you said
Mirage
there
and
was two.
Mystere jets. Mirage and Mystere jets.
You say two
Mirage.
jets.
Oh, no, bullshit. Mirage
in
and
every interview.
Mystere.
I've watched every interview you've done in the past 10 years. I promise you, in every interview, you say there were two jets, a Mystere and a Mirage.
Okay. All right.
By your estimation, Phil, how many jets would you say there was?
Probably 30 sorties. At least 30 sorties to do
30?
that type of damage. To do that
You think
type
there
of
were
damage.
30 aircraft over the
30,
Liberty?
30 sorties. Yeah. I
So
think.
what, they just deployed the entire Israeli Air Force on you guys, or what?
Yeah, they did. You know why they did?
That
Okay,
is
let's
crazy,
pause
Phil.
here. First of all, can't make these reaction to that. I have to. He's
I
like,
know.
what? Am I
That's the
needed
best
here?
part of the
Like,
whole
can't this
video.
guy just
Yeah.
keep going? He couldn't believe what he was hearing, and yeah, that was the correct reaction. David.
Oh yeah, no, that's my favorite part where he goes, he leans in a little bit like, "Oh my God, really? What?" Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what there is to say about this, other than the fact that in a sane universe, something like this should just put the whole issue to bed, definitively. Um, but unfortunately, I think, years from now, we'll still be here arguing about, the USS Liberty in the same way that we're arguing about, all kinds of other nonsense, years and years after the fact.
In a sane universe, Phil Turney is saying this stuff on a street corner with a megaphone made out of a rolled up magazine. Like, whereas he is any interview with Phil Turney gets, many, many, many times as many views as we get here. And it's in part because of it being a conspiracy theory, and of course, in part because it's a conspiracy theory specifically about the Jews. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, specifically with the thing, I've looked it up. It looks like there were about Israel had, we don't know exactly, but had about 70 Mirage fighters, fighter jets, and about 60 Mysteers, which are fighter bombers. So I guess technically they could have all of them, but all of them, so all of them were in the south. But again, like, he is the only one saying it, right? Like, it's on a thumbnail. I put on a thumbnail. There's a USS Liberty with 30 fighters like above the sky. It's like, how did nobody else see that? Like 30. It's not even like seeing that. Like, I believe even sound, especially when it comes to like earlier airplanes, the sound you would hear from 30 jets coming above you or like circling around you, which was happening, was insane. So and as he pointed out, right, he doesn't say that anywhere else, which I think shows the lies coming in. I'm not sure how much time we'll have to like bring up everything, but sort of a separate point I wanted to bring up, and I think it was actually brought up, the fact that even if you like take the whole conspiracy, the idea that this was supposed to be a false flag attack So basically, these are like Egyptian jets trying to attack USS Liberty. Egypt didn't have any airplanes. The whole point of the Six-Day War was that Israel attacked Egypt early and obliterated their sky capabilities. No Arab army was actually capable of deploying any aircraft in the region. That was the whole point. And why did and did America know that? Of course, America knew that because USS Liberty was there to pick up information. Why do we know what why do we have the Hebrew recordings of the pilots? That was intercepted by USS Liberty because USS Liberty was there to pick up information about what was happening in the region. So again, like this whole thing doesn't make sense. And I wanted to bring it up like generally about like talking about false flags generally because false flags never work. Like like there is not a single false flag that like actually was able to convince everybody. But some people might not even know this, but World War II was a false flag attack. Nazi soldiers dressed up as Polish soldiers and
Polish.
attacked a German satellite. Like I don't think that's even taught in like generally like overview of World War II because it's such a pointless thing to even mention because it's clear what it was about.
Well, also teaching World War II at all is offensive to anti-Semites, so I think they're not doing that as much as they used to. All right, more from Phil Turney.
Sure.
How many
Nobody all
bombs? How many bombs? How many rockets you think?
So
how
why
many-
does
how many-
nobody,
How
not a
many? How
single
many?
person, says there was
How
30?
many? How many missiles can a jet aircraft carry? Tell me
I
right
have
quick.
no idea, but I know for a
Well,
fact
I
there wasn't
do.
30 aircraft.
Well, I
over here.
do.
Okay. How many does a Mystere hold?
4.
Okay, let's look it up.
Look it up.
How many?
That's
But
off the top of my head.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because I never counted it before. I don't know.
They can
I said
carry
4.
up to 55 missiles.
Okay,
Okay,
No,
55.
not
I have to
4.
say that
Well, I
this is a beautiful moment because he's like, yeah, here's a fact. Do you know what this fact is? I know what this fact is. Oh, you're looking it up? It was just off the top of my head. Actually, I don't know. I didn't count. David, yeah, 455. So
So what Daniel
7.
said before about conspiracy theories being an epistemological issue is like, I mean, it's obviously correct, but I mean, here's such a great example. How, as rational beings, as sane people, how is it that we would, adjudicate the truth claim of one person, rather than another? An easy way would be, who tells a story that is, logically consistent and that makes sense, and who tells a story that doesn't add up in any way. I think we've kind of forgotten about we've kind of forgotten about this, as a people. And I mean, right now I'm working on a book about anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, specifically those that are popular on the right, and I will be addressing the Liberty, um, probably and I'll be addressing it to a sort of reasonable skeptic. I'm not sure how many people like that exist anymore, but we'll see. And but part of the book also discusses how and why we're particularly susceptible at this time to these things, and which is like a topic that I think would be worth discussing, because how did we get here? I think we got here in a kind of really short description. I think we basically got here. It's a marriage of technology, social media, and the weaponization of conspiracy culture. And I think definitely we have, I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, it's the Russians again, but there's no question about it that the Russians have been absolutely tip of the spear in terms of their propaganda network pushing as many crazy conspiracy theories about as many crazy things as humanly possible. And I think at the end of what that does after a while is it smooths the brain, and it makes people more receptive to more conspiracy theories. It's like sugar. You want a little bit, you get a little bit, and then you want more and more and more. And at the end of the road is always the Jews. And that's something that, frankly, the left and the ADL, who I think they're contemptible, and some other people on the left who were saying like, hey, when this person talks about a conspiracy theory, it always comes back to anti-Semitism, blah blah blah. And I kind of thought that was a little bit over the mark, but there is absolutely some truth to it. I think also it's really interesting to note that the the first person who broke the divide between conspiracy media and sort of mainstream political media in the United States was Tucker Carlson, and it was while he was on Fox. He began doing UFO shows, he began doing Bigfoot shows, he began doing shows that, like, frankly, were not offensive politically. They weren't like hot button things. It wasn't the USS Liberty. It wasn't the Holocaust. Um, it wasn't, Jews killed JFK or whatever. But he very subtly pushed in there conspiracy theories, and it normalized this for a lot of people. I think we see the popularity of Candace. I think what happened with, Candace Owens exploded with conspiracy theories. And if you look at her audience, I think it's basically the same as the QAnon audience. These are the same people who've been conditioned to seeing this, what is actually a pattern. It's the conspiracy theory. It's not the pattern that they think they see in their mind, but it's actually the conspiracy theory pattern, that they're drawn to everywhere. And frankly, I don't think that it's ever been an organic thing. I think that we have foreign enemies that know exactly how to press the buttons and how to do things that will break our brains. And there's absolutely nothing that breaks our brains more comprehensively than the proliferation of crazy conspiracy theories.
Well, I'm looking forward to the book even more now. I mean, because I didn't think about the whole Tucker, easing us into, conspiracy theories with things that are less objectionable, and but already conditioning our minds to divorce fact from our conclusions. And yeah, on Russia, I completely agree with you, and it's amazing to see the party of Ronald Reagan and of peace through strength, of tear down this wall, be the party that's actually gonna allow Russia to win the war that we thought was over. Daniel.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring up, and this should generally be followed when it comes to listening to anybody talk about any subject, especially people who consider subjects just factoids. Because, you could say, how many rockets does Mirage jet hold? You could say, oh, that's a factoid. But no, that's a very fundamental thing towards like your whole overview of the thing, right? Like you're saying, they had 4, so they had 30 of them, so they could make this amount. Like being off by that much isn't just, you just made a small mistake. It's like asking somebody like somebody who's like an expert on Israel-Palestine and asking, okay, so when did Second Intifada happen? And they're like, I don't know, late 1800s. And it's like, how do you even get to that? Like you must have a complete wrong understanding of the whole conflict to like even suggest that could be like an acceptable like date to recommend. And again, it's not just a factoid. It's like having like a proper contextual understanding of history, not just, this happened when, and this happened then, and this happened then. Like you need a broad overview to understand the whole thing. Then when it comes to sort of like why people are or why people like conspiracies, I think the big part of it is that just the fact is that world is complicated, and there are a lot of things where it's like it looks weird, like something weird happens. Like in the course of history, a lot of weird things happen that are like hard to explain. And conspiracy are like a really convenient and easy way to explain it. I mean, my kind of favorite example of this is like when people talk about gravity, because like on like the simple issue, it's like, oh, gravity, it's like mass objects like attract other, and then when you ask somebody who's like really into science, it's like we have no idea what gravity is, we don't understand it, we have I'm scared whenever I look into it, and it's like, so it's comforting to, oh, let's just accept, like, either let's accept some conspiracy so we don't have to deal with the vastness of a universe. Let's just take it. But no, it's the fact is that when you understand things, yeah, sometimes it's complicated, but if your goal is truth, then you know what to go for. And yeah, you can accept that you don't need God to fill in the gaps. Sometimes you can say, hey, this is something we just don't know yet. We don't have the technology to look into it. We might need the years or decades or thousands of years to properly understand this specific thing. And then on the foreign subversion post, I mean, my favorite example of this, and I think this plays a big part even in American politics, the sort of the foreign bots sort of influencing the American thinking. I remember one example of like somebody advocating for Texas independence, and he was saying, look, Texas has a great thing. It's a big economy. It has warm water ports. It should have independence. And it's like, wait a minute, warm water port? Why would a supposedly American use this concept, which is specifically a Russian concept because of the Russian geography? Warm ports refer to the ports in Black Sea, which now Russia has access because of Crimea, but it's like a big geopolitical Russian thing. America doesn't deal with.
That's a great catch because we only have warm water ports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. There are no cold ports that America uses, so that's why it's like, oh, okay, so this is like a Russian bot that is speaking in Russian language, just translating into English, or like Russian concepts.
I've always thought that conspiracy theories are also like a nice security blanket, and I encountered this as someone who's lived and worked inside DC, kind of alongside government for a very long time, and then let's say the national security bureaucracy for a very long time. It's not a surprise to me how people make mistakes. It's not a surprise to me that that there are screw ups. I'm always surprised that there aren't more screw ups. But conspiracy theories are a safety blanket for a lot of people because they they reassure them that no, actually someone is in charge. And even if it's bad guys in charge, even if it's satanic pedophiles who are Moloch worshiping hummus eaters in Jerusalem, at least we know that somebody is in charge, because the really terrifying thing is if no one is. And unfortunately, no one is.
Just a quick point on, as I mentioned, if you watch the whole thing, Phil Turney says repeatedly, I was there. He says I was there, again, in reference to things like, his case that Johnson was, was involved. I was there is relevant for how many planes there were, for how many missiles a plane can carry, and to say it again, he said it with such authority, it's four. If you say with such authority it's four and it turns out it's three or five, maybe you at least ask, why did you say it with such authority if it's it's about four? This is I think one of the big moments in the debate. But we only have a few minutes left. I want to go through let's go through this clip a bit more and then pause it at some point, and then I want to go through the clip that David, that you posted of Tucker. Let's see if we can fit both of those in.
There isn't left of this clip. It is they go further on this specific issue.
Okay, it was fun to watch, so I would recommend people watch at the very least that clip, if not the whole.
I mean, I have
debate.
separate clips from the debate if you wanna.
Let's go to the Tucker clip and see if we can fit in another debate clip afterwards.
The attack on the USS Liberty that everyone's so afraid to talk about, clearly targeted on purpose. by a country we're supporting, Israel, and it's somehow shameful to say that? Why? Why is it shameful to say that? Who knows why it's shameful to say that, but it shouldn't be. And until we have some self-respect, not anger or hate, but just dignity, it will continue. In June, for example, during the 12-day war, such as it was with Iran, during that short conflict, there are a bunch of Israeli Defense Force officers in the Pentagon that week. And during that week, ask anyone who works at the Pentagon, they enraged American Pentagon staff by just barging into meetings, giving orders, making demands, and nobody did anything about it. How can a foreign military officer barge into military headquarters, even if invited, but barge into a meeting and start demanding, we want this, we want that, you need to get on this? The more you allow that kind of deeply unhealthy behavior, the more you're going to get.
Okay, first of all, on that last point, 'cause that's so infuriating. With anything Tucker says that you don't know actually happened, there's always the asterisk, if true, and probably not true. But if true, let's remember what this war was. This was a defensive war that Israel should have gone on decades ago. It did, a lot in this war, but it didn't finish the job. Finishing the job was getting rid of the regime, which has since in the 6 months since started rebuilding their capabilities to a point where they might be stronger than they were during that war. That war was stopped by Donald Trump. That war was stopped by the people, whoever. Well, I think it was Trump. It was Trump on his own, but certainly nobody in Israel was controlling what US was doing. Otherwise, the US would have done what needed to be done, which is step aside and let Israel finish the job. David.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think it was infuriating. He's got, just juxtaposing those two things. That was a little clip from a that was the promo clip for the episode that he did with Phil Turney, where it was very obvious that Tucker came out, parroting Turney's point about how it was a deliberate attack, and the question of why sort of hangs in the air, and he wants it to hang in the air. And he answers, he wants it to hang in the air so that he could sort of pile more garbage on top with the fake story about about what allegedly happened at the Pentagon, which obviously he gave absolutely no evidence for, and there's just zero reporting to corroborate what he says. But I mean, he's at the point where he can just say anything, and and it's pretty ridiculous how um how Ben Shapiro or myself or or anyone else pushing back on this and saying, hey, wait a minute, um what's going on in the mind of a guy who is obsessed with an insane interpretation of the Liberty Conspiracy, and then also, by the by, has no problem making up stuff about about how horrible Israel is, and who devotes probably 85% of his shows to the subject of how horrible Israel is, not to mention the fact that he writes about it every single day in his newsletter. um, you know, is this a serious person, or is this a person with is this a person willing to or participating in a public policy debate as it relates to U.S. foreign policy regards to another country, or is this a crank? And we have so many people out there who are afraid to admit that this is a crank and a psychopath. And and we saw in the last 24 hours, we saw JD Vance basically, do more than endorse Tucker as a person, actually endorse the things that he says, on a meta level, not in specifics terms, but in overarching terms, very unmistakably. And I think it's going to be, I think we're in for a rocky road ahead, where this is the standard bearer for, a once normal Republican Party.
Yeah, it is. The future is terrifying. I mean, at the start of the clip, Tucker says, "Why is it shameful to say, that this is whatever?" Tucker always answers points that have never been made. I mean, in his response to Ben Shapiro, he's talking about what people are being denounced, yeah, with a high-pitched voice, denounced at a Charlie Kirk event. Charlie Kirk was denouncing people all the time. He would have people come up to him, challenge him, and he would call them out, which was what Ben Shapiro did to Tucker Carlson. To their credit, the 19-year-old woke students that came up to Charlie Kirk usually made more of a substantial argument than anything Tucker makes. Daniel.
Yeah, or even specifically, let's say we are just talking about Charlie Kirk, as in barring certain people from accessing either his events or generally the conservative movement, and saying, he was for like, having it be open. Yes, but not for neo-Nazis. That was one specific thing that Charlie Kirk was big about, not allowing groypers into conservative movement. This was specifically what Charlie Kirk was about when it comes to sort of dealing with people. That's what Ben Shapiro is calling out, letting neo-Nazis and groypers into conservative movement. So when Tucker says, well, I thought this is free speech. Well, there was the one thing where even well, it wouldn't be about free speech anyway, but there was one thing that Charlie Kirk was pretty strong about, is even if we open up the conservative movement to a lot of people, yeah, not allowing groypers in should be the basic criterion. This was like the groyper versus Turning Point USA fight was going on for like a decade. Like this was the thing from the start that Charlie Kirk was about. But sort of now going specifically into the IDF in Pentagon, or whoever supposedly it was, I don't know even what I'm annoyed by more, if by the fact that, Tucker Carlson is talking about it, or by the fact that it didn't happen. Because to some extent, I mean, when it comes to the Iranian war, I'm surprised some IDF or Israeli guy didn't like shake an American general. Like, do you know what's going on? Do you know what we're fighting? We're like fighting your war right now. Can you maybe give us a little bit of help of actually finishing the Iranian regime for once? I mean, I would compare this to like Zelensky saying, hey guys, can you like give us ammo and stop offering me a ride out? Because I'm fighting for you guys. I'm fighting for the Western civilization against Russia. Can you like come in and help me for a bit?
Daniel, I don't think your next career is in diplomacy, but I agree with the essence of it. The delivery is not how they do it in the State Department and other state departments, and which are particularly bad, and probably not even in the Pentagon. But yeah, I don't think we have time for another clip. We are out of time. We can probably talk about this for a few more hours. We probably will at some point in the future of this channel, until we are removed by, YouTube or the government or whoever it is. But until then, we will be here every day, continuing to fight, even when it looks like there is no hope. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, David, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show.
Wait, where can people find people?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. David, where can people find you? And
Uh,
any
Dave,
parting thoughts? We do have time for that.
sure. Dave Raboy on Twitter and on Substack. I write at Late Republic Nonsense about some of this stuff, and yeah, that's it.
Daniel.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan, and everybody's links are going to be in the description as well.
I'm Razi Ginsburg on X, and I will be back here tomorrow. We'll see you then.